Oh yeah, that's a collection if I've ever seen one. Oh, what's that? Looks like we have Slipknot's third percussionists banging on steel. Yo, what's up everybody? It's Jay Dennis back with another ranked video. Slipknot's new album, We Are Not Your Kind, came out recently, and actually a lot of my favorite bands have been putting out music in the wonderful year of 2019. Killswitch Engage, Sum 41, Blink-182, As I Lay Dying. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Korn. Now I know there's others, but this video is about Slipknot and their 6 albums with Corey Taylor. I only make that distinction because I know there's a lot of hardcore Slipknot fans out there that are all about make, keep, feed, kill, repeat or whatever, but I know Slipknot does everything to keep that album private, which is why you can only listen to it on YouTube or some, I don't know, whatever torrent site it exists on, but it doesn't exist on any other platform as far as I know. But before I do my ranking, I want to share real quick Corey Taylor's ranking, which you can find on a Metal Injection article. And he said this before the new album came out. So his personal from worst to best was All Hope Is Gone, Volume 3, Iowa, Gray Chapter, and then Self-Titled, Slipknot. I just know that he mentioned All Hope Is Gone, not because of the music, but just because of the atmosphere with Rick Rubin. And was Rick Rubin on that album? Was it partially produced by him? Produced by Slipknot and Dave Fortman. Nope. And then he said he didn't like Volume 3 because he changed up his scream. Gray Chapter was a very personal album for him, having lost his best friend Paul, the bass player. And then I guess they didn't really talk about Slipknot or Iowa, but I guess Slipknot was probably his favorite just because it's fucking raw and it was their first big album. It was probably crazy to make. But today I'm going to go over my favorites, or actually my rankings, and then I'm going to go over the top tracks off of each album, the weak tracks off of the albums, and if I have anything else I want to cover real quick, I'll go over that as well. So, coming in at number 6, we have The Gray Chapter. This album came out in 2014. By the way, I'm doing standard editions of these albums. I'm not doing bonus tracks. I'm not doing any of that. Just doing the standard editions. Standard edition, it's 14 tracks. It's an hour and 4 minutes, which, by the way, before I go into all the other albums, like Slipknot, they average like 14 tracks an album before bonus tracks, and then like they average about an hour per album. So even though they've only done 6 albums in the past 20 years, and that's excluding the fact that Corey Taylor's done like Stone Sour and other band members have probably done other things. Joey Jordison did like Murder Dolls or something. 6 albums in 20 years, roughly every 3 years. But the good news is there's a lot of songs, and there's about an hour's worth on average per album. So they're definitely not screwing you in terms of what they can offer you over time. But anyway, so number 6, 0.5, The Gray Chapter, album 5. So this album was teased with The Negative One, which is a great song. And then the other single, I believe, was The Devil and I. But to me, this is just first of all, it's got the worst artwork in my opinion. And then for some odd reason, it's got 2 discs. And the second disc is what has the 2 bonus tracks. Why would you put 2 bonus tracks on one disc? That doesn't make sense to me. But the booklet's really cool. And so is the band photo right here. Because there was a huge change in the band between All Hope Is Gone and this. There was 6 years between this and All Hope Is Gone. Paul Gray died, Joey Jordison left. So there's some new members in the band. And even though lyrically it's probably a very deep album and very cathartic, and it's clear you can tell which songs are about who, to me it's just my least favorite Slipknot album, but I still really, really like it. Like when it came out, I would jam the fuck out of Custer and Approaching Original Violence. And upon re-listening to it again, I've realized that my favorite tracks are Approaching Original Violence, Nomadic, and Custer. But weaker tracks like Lech, whatever it's called, track 7. And then I like it now more than I did back then, but The One That Kills the Least is not a song I'm particularly a huge fan of. I love Be Prepared for Hell, the way it leads into the negative one. And Kill Pop is a good song. Even though Skeptic I think is about Paul Gray, I just found that there wasn't really any catchy choruses in here, and the heaviness of the album is condensed into certain areas. The album just it's not consistent as the other albums. That's probably why I put this one towards the bottom. Although it does have a strong opening and a strong closer, but Sarcastrophe is probably one of the weaker opening full tracks that Slipknot's ever done compared to like Blister Exists, Gametria, Sick, People Equal Shit, Unsainted. Every Slipknot album has that intro track. So that's number 6. Number 5, All Hope Is Gone. Originally I was going to put this one last, but I listened to it again, and this is a very sentimental album for me. Came out my senior year of high school, 2008, and senior year was awesome for me, so this is a soundtrack to a fun part of my life. So even though it's not one of their strongest albums, it's in the bottom 3, I still find a lot of value in this. This album has, by the way, its regular edition is 12 tracks and it's 57 minutes. Came out in 2008. Top tracks in my opinion are Gametria, The Killing Name, Sulfur, and All Hope Is Gone. So pretty much 2 singles, and then Gametria. I thought that was just a very hard-hitting opening full track, considering he reintroduced his more guttural sounding screams that were ditched on Volume 3. Vocally, Corey Taylor's scream sounds insane in this album. Also sounds really good in The Great Chapter. It's just, I think the music writing in All Hope Is Gone is better. And even though they went in a more melodic direction with songs like Snuff and Dead Memories, those are fantastic songs. There's a difference between the melodic stuff that Corey Taylor does with Slipknot and with Stone Sour. There's common themes amongst the 2 bands, but there's just something more evil and sinister about Slipknot and what Mick Thompson and the other members like Craig Jones, Sid Wilson offer. So again, this is a very sentimental album for me. Songs I used to listen to way back in the day would be like, I used to think Kahina was like the best track off the song, which Kahina I think is a Final Fantasy VII monster. This Cold Black and Wherein Lies Continue. I'd use This Cold Black to actually check the tuning on my guitar. I'd learn the riff and I would check if I was in drop A. I'd play with that and I'd play to this track to see if I was in tune. But much like with The Great Chapter, I found that the single that they led with, which is the title track, All Hope Is Gone, is one of my favorite songs. Like, it's actually really fucking heavy. It's like one of Slipknot's heaviest songs, like, ever. The blast beats, the tremolo picking, the screaming, like, if you put aside the bonus tracks, this song ends on an extremely heavy note, and then Execute is a very evil-sounding intro, too. But my favorite tracks off this album are Gametria, Sulfur, and All That Was Gone. I already said that. Sulfur is so well written that, to me, it overshadowed my other favorite tracks like Gehenna, Wherein Lies Continue. I think Vendetta and Butcher's Hook are kind of weak tracks. I know a lot of people love Vendetta, and musically it's a great song, but just the vocals don't do it for me, and like the hook doesn't do it for me. Especially like the bridge, like I don't know what the fuck that is, and then Butcher's Hook is just a really weird ass song that I just really can't get into. Probably my least favorite Slipknot song ever. Apparently, there was a tattered and torn clothing line that was offered. You see, this is the way a booklet should be. It came with the booklet, came with the CD with all the tracks on, but then it came with like a making of DVD instead of putting 2-3 tracks on a a second disc like with the other one, but I like the album cover of this one. All right, number 4, the new album, We Are Not Your Kind. So, in terms of their last 3 albums, All Hope Is, or We Are Not Your Kind is actually really fucking good. So yeah, in terms of the last 3 albums that have come out, We Are Not Your Kind is obviously the best one. The reason it's not higher up on the list is because, to me, it's more consistent, of course, than Gray Chapter and All Hope Is Gone. You know, there's definitely more consistency among some of the songs. I don't think there's any weak tracks on here, but the bursts of greatness are still a little more sporadic and like more consistent albums than the next ones I'm about to talk about. But I think Unsainted is probably one of Slipknot's best songs ever. Slipknot's a band that really release powerful singles. They're really good at having good singles and good non-singles. Was that an intelligent thought? Came out this year, 2019. It's got 14 tracks. It's an hour and 3 minutes long. The singles they put out, Unsainted, Birth of the Cruel, Soul Wave Firth, all excellent singles. As far as I know, most people are a huge fan, including myself, of Nero Forte. That song fucking kills. And then Critical Darling, Liar's Funeral, and then to me, Orphan is huge. Now, a quick little note I want to mention is I noticed a lot of people love the song Spiders. It's very different. It's kind of brilliant in a way, the way the music's written. Same thing with My Pain. Very unique Slipknot song. But to me, Spiders is kind of just a little overrated in my opinion. Again, I think musically it's awesome, but I just don't like the whole Tim Burton creepy vibe the way most people do. But my personal favorite tracks on here are Unsainted, Nero Forte, and Orphan. And the only weak songs on here are just the transition songs, like Death Because of Death and What's Next, which those aren't even really songs, so I can't really criticize them, but I just feel like it kind of takes away from time from the album. But you know, the album still flows with them. But if I had to just nitpick and say that there's weak tracks, it's those. But I think this is, like the ranking suggests, this is the best album they've released since Volume 3. So the best album they put out in 15 years. Strongly recommend going and getting it. This is an easy album to get into, but it took me several listens to kind of develop an opinion on it. But great first impression, and again, Unsainted is a great song to show to somebody if they're a first-time Slipknot listener. All right, next up we have Selftitled. Yes, Selftitled. This is the first album I got into with Slipknot. My friend burned me a copy back in 2004 when Volume 3 was still new. And I was mostly listening to like the first 6 tracks, and then I would stop around Tired and Torn. And that's pretty much those are pretty much my top tracks for this album are Eyeless, Spit It Out, and Surfacing. Spit It Out's one of my all-time favorite Slipknot songs. That guitar riff, the verses, the bridge, it just can't be fucked with. The original version is 15 tracks if you count the hidden track Eeyore, and then it's 50 minutes long. So this is actually their shortest album. But it's just very raw, it's very indicative of the turn of the century sound that was going on with NuMetal. It's very aggressive, it's very awesome. So yeah, this album has no weak tracks. It doesn't have any weak tracks. It's pretty consistent from start to finish. But to me, for the most part, the best stuff is the first half of the album. I used to not like songs like Tired and Torn or Prosthetics, but now I really like them. I can pretty much appreciate any Slipknot song, except for Butcher's Hook. On the second half of the album, I like No Life and Only One a lot. There's also a song called Purity. I think that song only came out on the special edition that came out, but Purity is one of my favorite Slipknot songs, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just a bonus track or a B-side that came out on the special edition, but it's raw, it's awesome. And I know most people would probably say this is their best album, but I have a different opinion. Next up we have Volume 3. Now you might be wondering, why is this album so high up on the list? Now, much like All Hope Is Gone, This is a very sentimental album for me. This is the album that, even though I listened to their self-titled one originally, this is the album that really got me into them. This was my first experience with Slipknot. I remember being in 8th grade, it was 2004. I remember seeing the music video for Vermilion and being creeped the fuck out and going like, yeah, I can never listen to Slipknot. And then there was like kind of like this bully. He was just more of a verbal bully though, that I had in 8th grade, and he had a Slipknot backpack, so I had a negative association to this band. I wanted nothing to do with him. But then I ended up meeting somebody the following year. He was a friend of mine. He's the one that got me into Slipknot. So aside from this, I also got this album, Christmas of 2005, with like the same time I got into System of a Down. And to me, this album, just from start to finish, I've always thought is just flawless. Like, this album is just, to me, it's flawless. And the only reason why it's not number one is because, as Corey Taylor said, his vocal performance. Back then, I didn't realize this, but now, upon listening to the 6 albums, I don't dislike his vocals in this album. It brings a certain charm to it, and it's less guttural, it's higher, and it definitely adds value to the more high-end sound that you hear on here. But if they were to redo this and re-release it with Corey Taylor's different vocals, I'm sure it would sound pretty damn awesome. And if you listen to live versions of the song, I do believe he does more guttural stuff with this. But he was newly sober when he did this, so I guess he wanted to try something new. But yeah, as I said, this album has no weak tracks. None. I love every single song. But the only reason why it's not number one is because it doesn't have the vocals of the number one album. Standard edition came out in 2004, 14 tracks, it's an hour long. My favorite tracks are 3-0, Opium of the People, and The Blister Exists. Blister Exists is just such a fuck you opener. And back then, songs like Prelude 3.0 and the last 2 tracks, Virus of Life and Danger Keep Away, even The Nameless, I wasn't a huge fan of that song back then, but now I just love every song. And for the longest time, songs like Opium of the People and Circle and Welcome, I had those 3 songs on repeat all the time during the summer. Like, those were like huge songs for me. And then Vermilion was one of the first songs I learned on guitar. But there's just something brilliant about 3-0. And then the singles for this album are the easiest way to get into Slipknot. Before I forget, in Duality, like, I had those songs on my iPod Nano, the original iPod Nano, and this is just even though it's vocally his most different album, this is like a really good introduction album to get somebody into Slipknot. So I love this album. It's one of my favorites of all time, but it's not my number one Slipknot album. It's just by a hair though. It's by a hair because of the vocal performance of number one, Iowa. You know? It's pretty much agreed upon amongst most Slipknot fans that this is their best album. This is the 3rd album that I ever got into. The last 3 albums that came out, I got them all when they came out. But it took me 5-6 years after they came out for me to listen to their first 3 albums. This was a huge album for me my sophomore year of high school. Came out in 2001, which was a very fucking awesome year. 14 tracks, an hour and 6 minutes. So this is actually their longest album. If you consider just the standard edition, you know, you can thank the title track for that at the end. My favorite tracks on here are Disaster Piece, New Abortion, and Metabolic. New Abortion and Metabolic haven't changed since I was younger. Those have been mainstays in my life for Slipknot. No weak tracks whatsoever. The only one that I could put, nitpick in the slightest, tiniest little bit is I Am Hated. But I was jogging to that song yesterday and I was like, I still like it. It's got cool effects and it's got like a really fast, intense beat to it. It's aggressive, but to me it's just not as aggressive as the other songs. But like the singles on here, My Plague, Left Behind, People Equals Shit, The Heretic Anthem, like you just can't fuck with those. And again, this album just has the slightest advantage over Volume 3 for being just slightly more evil, even though Volume 3 is a dark album. This album's even darker, and just the vocal performance. This is Corey Taylor's best vocal performance. And it's funny. If you want to show like a heavier fan of music, Slipknot and get him into them, which by the way, Slipknot's a fucking huge band, so if you've never heard of Slipknot and never listened to them, then I don't know what to tell you. But if you wanted to show somebody that likes the heavier stuff, show them Iowa first. If you want to show somebody some softer stuff, either show them Stone Sour after their self-titled album, like Come Whatever May or whatever, or Volume 3, or Snuff. Not Snuff, Sulfur. Keep getting those two confused. But anyway, Iowa from Slipknot, fucking turn of the century, 2001, Tech Deck dudes, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, NuMetal. Like, I had never really listened to the final track, Iowa. It's like a 14-minute song. I never listened to it really all the way through until recently. It's a fucking dark song. And apparently Corey Taylor like minorly mutilated himself with like a broken glass. And like the screams in there are actually like actual screams of pain. So it's a pretty dark album. But every single track, and like my friends and I, like my old band, back in high school, like we would listen to this album together a lot, and we would love songs like Everything Ends, Left Behind, The Shape, New Abortion. Like, they're just really powerful songs, and this was just a really good album for me. So, you know, these two particular albums are really special to me, but pretty much all of Slipknot's albums are awesome and worth listening to. They're an amazing band. The fact that 9 people can go up on stage and play like that is fucking tremendous. So, thank you guys for watching. My name is Jay Dennis. This is another ranked video. Subscribe to the channel. Go to raptorriot.bandcamp.com. Download the Sabotage EP. Raptor Riot is partially influenced by Slipknot. So if you like Slipknot, check us out. The link's in the description. And